Welcome back everyone, I am Bharat. I hope you guys are doing absolutely fine. In this video, we'll walk through what we have done till now. We'll understand how we created ECS cluster and ECS repo using Boto3, and then we will create roles and policies for ECS task definitions. So without any further delays, let's get started. Let me open up VS Code here. So we had created a simple Flask API till now, and in the last video we created the utilities folder where we have created some utility files for creation and deletion of AWS resources. We also created a folder called AWS resources where we have named the files based on the AWS resource names or the service names, where we do all the deletion, creation, updation and all those actions related to that particular AWS service. So before getting started with the IAM roles and policies for ECS task definition, let's try running the create AWS resources.py and delete AWS resources.py once again. And I forgot to mention one more thing. We had also created a file called values.py where we specify all the constants that are needed to create this AWS resources. Let's say these are names for AWS resources that we want to give them. So now let's try to create these AWS resources. We run create AWS resources.py. See, this is complete. Now let's go to ECS and ECR. You can see we have created this cluster and the repository. So now let's run the delete file. Let's go to the console, see if it is deleted. You can see the cluster is no more found and the repository as well. Okay, now let's continue on creating IAM roles and policies for ECS task definitions. Let me click on IAM and go to roles. You can see currently there are 4 roles here, and we do not have any custom managed policies yet. I haven't created any policies. Let me go back to roles, and in fact let me open this policies in the next tab. Okay, now let's go back to VS Code. So the agenda now would be to create a ECS task role and create a ECS task execution policy, attach this policy to the role, and then once this all the creation part is done, we will focus on performing deletions for the same. So firstly we'll detach the policy from the role, and then delete the policy, and then delete the role, and we'll be doing all this using Boto3. Now let's go back to VS Code and create another file in this AWS resources folder called iam.py, and let's import Boto3 and create client object. So this is done. Now based on this agenda, you can see there are 6 steps here. So we need to have 6 functions. So let's just prepare the skeleton of this functions. Now let's add in Boto3 syntax to do these actions. Let me minimize this terminal here. Okay, here I have the syntaxes ready. Also, I'll share the GitHub repository link, so you can go ahead and clone the project and try it out. So firstly, for create role, let's copy the syntax and paste it here. Okay, let's remove what we don't want here. Okay, these are the 3 things that we need. So all we'll be returning is the role dictionary from the response. We need to pass in role name and assume role policy document. So description for this. So let's go to values.py and create all the constants. What else do we need? We need assume role policy document. So we need one for this role and then one for policy as well. So we'll create those. So these will be dictionaries, and then we will stringify it. So let's call it ECS task role JSON. So I'll add this the description as well. In fact, this will be there in the GitHub repository, so you can get it from there. Let me copy this and put it over here, and then for ECS task policy JSON, let's copy this and paste it over here. Okay, we have this configs ready. Let's go back here and try to use these. Once this is done, let's go ahead and create our policies. So let's copy the syntax for the policy and paste it here. ECS task policy name, you need path, let's add the JSON here and the description. Let's remove the tags. Now here we would want to return the policy dictionary. So once this is done, let's attach role to policy. Let's paste the syntax here. There won't be any response that will be coming back from this particular method. So let's remove this response variable, and we need to pass in role name and policy ARN. So let's add it as parameters. So here for policy ARN, there would be a particular format that ARN would be there. Let's copy this format here, and let's go to values and let's go to the last and simply call it policy ARN format. Is that here? So here we will have to add account ID and the policy name here. Policy name we already know. For account ID, let's create another variable and call it account ID. So let me go back to the console and copy account ID. So you can add your account ID here. Okay, let's substitute it here. Okay, so we are done with the policy ARN. So let me move this format and call it CS task policy ARN. So this is done. So we know we need ECS role name. So ECS task role name, and let's pass in the ARN. And in fact, we don't need this parameters, right? Because we have added it in values file. Okay, now let's do it for detach. Let me copy the syntax and go back here, paste it. Here also we'll not be getting any response. So let's remove this response variable and just need to pass in the same ECS task role name and the policy RN. Now let's add the syntax for deleting policy and then role. And this needs policy RN, so let's give it as a value, and then let's copy the syntax for deleting role and pass the role name. Okay, so all this is done. Now let's test it. So now let's add these into the create AWS resources. Let's go back to the console and here let's go to ECS. You can see there's no cluster here. Now let's run this file. Utils not found. Oh, okay, so we have to remove this. Looks like there's one in another place as well. So this is done. Let's try it again. Looks like we have an error. Okay, so this error is because of not stringifying the policy record. So let's do that. Now before doing that, let's run this delete file once. Okay, once this is done, let's go back to the create resources and let's go to create role. And here all we had to do is perform a json.dumps. So let's import JSON and the json.dumps. Same goes for the policy creation. Okay, so once this is done, let's try to run the create file again. Oops, looks like there's some mistake that we have. Let's see, where did we go wrong? Invalid parameter for description. Looks like this is under policy creation or role creation. Oh, okay. So instead of passing a description, we have passed JSON here. Now let's retry it. So before retry, let's delete the cluster and ECR repo and then create all the resources. Oh, we just imported something and this happens. Remove this and put this at the end. Let's delete once more and retry it again. Okay, looks like our policy was created successfully. So that is why it did not create it again. Here is our task role. And this is the attached policy. We can go to the policies page and refresh. You can see the policy is created as well, and it is attached to the role as well. Okay, now let's go back here and try to delete these resources. So let's go to delete AWS resources.py and import from AWS resources. We need to import IAM and then IAM dot. First we'll detach the policy from the role and then we'll delete the policy, then we'll delete the role. Now let's run this delete file. Okay, let's try to refresh. The policy does not exist, so you can see it is deleted. And same would be for roles. So let's go back to roles page. You can see it is deleted. Same goes with the ECR and cluster. Okay, now let's do one more check. Let's try to create it. So now let's add print statements after creating each AWS service. So now let's add these print statements in the delete as well. Okay, now let's run this creation file. So ECR repository created, and okay, everything got created. Now let's go back to the console and give a refresh. So the policy is created, and let's do refresh in the role as well. So you can see the role is created as well. So we already saw for cluster and ECR as well earlier. Now let's try for deletion. ECR, ECS, policy, role. Everything got deleted. Let's go back here and refresh. It's gone. This one's gone too. So that is it for this video, guys. If you found this was helpful, hit on the like button, share it with your friends, and drop your valuable thoughts and suggestions in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet, and hit on the notification bell so you never miss out any of our latest updates. Thank you for watching. I look forward to meet you guys in the upcoming videos.